Hello, everybody. It's Laura Eisenhower. I am joined today by a very special guest named Samuel Chong. And I am just learning about you for like the first time. So this is really exciting. I'm really glad that we've come together to do this. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, yeah. So everybody, Samuel Chong is a certified court interpreter and Chinese translator. Samuel Chong was instrumental in arranging for the Chinese publication of Michael DeMarcott's book. How do you say this? Thiaoouba?
Thiaoouba, yes, Thiaoouba prophecy.
Thiaoouba prophecy, which has been a bestseller in both China and Taiwan, which is a rare phenomenon. He visited the author, Michael DeMarcott, in 2016 and 2018 and has had a close working relationship with him. He also translated the book 334% Lies, the revelation of H.M.V. Stull, an autobiography of the High Master of the Chair of a secret society that was started in Germany. Today, he dedicates his efforts in promoting the messages in these books in order to give people hope and to help promote a better world through his scholarship at chinasona.org. And I'll put all those links in the description. But okay, you've been helping to bring all this information out, right? Michael departed and passed away in 2018, correct? And so you are sharing a lot about all of this, and you were able to translate it, and so everybody in China and Taiwan probably know more about all this than we do here in the United States. Tell us, what is this prophecy?
Yes, it's actually not a book of prophecy. It's a book of warnings to us from the friendly ETs. What happened was that the author, he's actually a French guy named Michel. The English is Michael, but in French it's Michel Demarquet. He had this very interesting and fascinating experience back in 1987 when he was taken away by this group of benevolent, compassionate ETs to their planet for 9 days and then came back. So he himself was like a landscaper, a farmer in Australia who didn't have a lot of education or knowledge about ETs or paranormal phenomena and things like that. But in the book, there are a lot of specific verifiable details and facts that the readers can do a lot of investigations and research to verify things like who built the Great Pyramid of Egypt, what happens in the Bermuda Triangle, and also the interventions of the ETs to us over the years throughout ancient history until the present day, including what happened during World War II. According to this book, this group of ETs prevented Germany from being the first country to develop the atomic bomb, and also explains a lot of the information, such as nowadays, a lot of people don't know about Project Westward, in which the US government released hundreds of millions of needles into space. And then the project failed for the first time. And then this is actually due to the ET intervention, according to this book. Because the ETs believe that by releasing the hundreds of millions of needles into space, that would harm us. So they actually were trying to help us and protect us in a way for us to live a better life. Yeah.
And what kind of ETs and what is this off-planet world called? Or tell us more about that.
Well, this group of ETs call themselves the Thiaoubans. In French, it's Jehovahans, similar to the pronunciation Jehovah. And actually, in this book, explains the connection between them and also the ancient scriptures in the Bible. Like they actually, according to this book, were directly responsible for leading Moses, helping the ancient Hebrews out of Egypt, escaping from the evil rules of the pharaohs. And they were responsible for parting the Sea of Reeds, not the Red Sea, but the Sea of Reeds. And also they were responsible for having Jesus born out of Virgin Mary and having Christ to come to us. So this book is not just about ETs, but also about spirituality, consciousness, ancient civilizations, the paranormal phenomena, and also politics as well. It tells us the 4 real dangers on Earth. Number 1 being money. Number 2, politicians. Number 3, journalists and drugs. Number 4, religions. So this book is a book of everything, connecting all the dots together with a lot of information that we can verify nowadays.
Do they go by any other name that is more familiar to people?
The Thiaoubans, Jehovah's.
What do they look like?
Oh, they are 10 foot tall, Nordic looking. They're hermaphrodites, meaning that they have both male and female sexual organs, and they can perform all the miracles as performed by Christ, like healing the diseased, levitating above ground, communicating through telepathy, materializing objects, projecting images to a person so that the person thinks that he or she is in a different situation, and also other things like making adult human being in about 24 hours. So they can perform all the things that's performed by Christ, having this supernatural psychic powers. And they tell us that we can also actually do the same if we practice sufficiently. And this actually coincides with another book that I translated, describing how the high degree members of the Illuminati were able to use different rituals to obtain super psychic powers.
Right. In this, to try and tap into what these beings do. The Illuminati would have to do it like through ritual, right? And sacrifice in dark ways, right?
I mean, the Illuminati did it through the dark rituals, but it's not suggested, it's not promoted, because they did it incorrectly, even though they obtained super psychic powers. But this group of ETs, they are saying that everyone is created equal, and we should have our free will and to develop our spirituality and spiritual involvement. And that's the purpose of life. He also talks about reincarnation and that everyone has a spark of divinity because we are part of God and God is part of us. It talks about the creation of the universe and everything. It's a book with a lot of information and fascinating like insights.
So tell us more about this extraterrestrial planet and the time that he spent there. What are some stories from that?
Well, this planet is in our Milky Way galaxy, and Michel Desmarquet tells us that the planet can be described as a golden planet because as he approached the planet in their spacecraft, it seems that there's a golden mist surrounding this planet. So when he landed on the planet, he discovered there are 2 things that are so different from Earth. Number 1 is that the gravity on the planet is much lighter than that is on Earth. So he had to be careful when moving around. And the second difference is that there are strong lights and colors, so that he had to wear facial masks like sunglasses to filter out the strong lights and colors. Otherwise, he would have been drunken by the lights. So he was like a dwarf among the tall and compassionate people. And he described those people are like people who receive news like every second. They are always very happy, and they are always looking like in their 30s, forever young, because they can regenerate their body tissues and cells, so they don't age at all. They're forever young looking, and they communicate with each other through telepathy, but sometimes they also communicate with Michel Desmarquet by voice. And everything is so perfect on the planet. It's just like a paradise. And Michel Desmarquet didn't really want to come back. He was actually led back because he had to, and he could only remain there for 9 days or so, according to them.
And how did he travel there? Ship, UFO?
Yes. What happened was that he was lifted up to the mid of the air, and he encountered his like mentor called Tao, and they actually first arrived in a parallel universe, and then she took him on the spaceship, which is a spherical shape, about 100 meters in diameter. And then they took on their journey and they traveled first into deep space with a speed of a few times faster than the speed of light. And then once they're in deep space, they use what we would call teleportation, first by vibrating the spacecraft to the speed of light so that it suddenly disappears, so they're able to teleport the spacecraft to another location in deep space. He calls it transubstantiation. And then from that location in deep space, they again travel a few times faster than speed of light to their destination. So this is how they traveled.
So what happened when he came back? Like how did that change his life? What messages, prophecies, warnings? I know you listed a few, but like in the here and now and what we're seeing in the world, like, well, let's first go to what was it like when he got back? Like, how did that change him?
When he got back, he was instructed to write a book. Actually, that's the purpose of his trip, is to write everything word for word, what he heard, observed, and experienced, without any personal opinions or additions. And then when he was writing, information would be downloaded to him because there are so many details in the book, as you can imagine, and very specific facts contained in the book. And then it took him a while to write a book, and he was having a hard time to find a publisher to have it published as a nonfiction. Everyone thought it's a science fiction, and all the major publishers refused to have it published. So he had to publish on his own. He got it published in 1993, and I think he tried to promote the book as best as possible. Some people believed him, but most people, including the ufologists at the time in Australia, didn't believe him. And because they're so far away from their preconceived notions. And he had a major depression because everything didn't go as what he expected. He, because of the event of his experience, he lost his wife. His wife divorced him because his wife didn't believe what happened to him. She thought he was having an affair with another woman. So he had an emotional breakdown. He went to Vietnam and lived for the rest of his life. So this book talks about the warnings and gives us the warnings that we have to know what's really going on behind the scenes. It talks about there's a group of people, financiers, running everything behind the scenes, like making the politicians as puppets. We see Republicans, Democrats in the US, and they're actually basically the same because they're all controlled by this or manipulated by this group of people. And this is very similar to what you have been talking about, or your great-grandfather, the military-industrial complex. And actually, I found that to be fascinating because I've been doing a lot of research on secret societies and also the group of people that's running everything behind the scenes. Like there's a doctor, PhD called Dr. John Coleman, who wrote a book, The Committee of 300. And also Aaron Russo had an interview with Alex Jones talking about the involvement of Nick Rockefeller in the women's rights movement, and also some of the things they did in the past. So I think everything is connected, and this book sheds light into what we can do to respond to such situations and the challenges that we have been facing in our lifetime. And this book actually gives a solution.
Wow, that's excellent. So talk to us a bit about solutions and humanity advancing itself, in the face of so much constant assault. How are things looking, and what kind of revelations connected to solutions with the warnings can we look at?
Well, one of the solutions is that first we have to have the knowledge. We have to know what's really going on behind the scenes, what's really going on around the world. What appears to be on the surface may not necessarily be what's really going on. So we first have to have the knowledge. And second is that we have to act together in a concerted fashion to rise up against tyranny. And one way to do that is through nonviolent resistance, just like what Gandhi did in India. So if you think about it, whether it's the military-industrial complex or the wealthy people, the financiers, they rely on the slave labor of the people, in order to profit themselves. If we act together, have a major strike, if everyone joins the force, have this major strike, we the people would lose very little. But the super wealthy, the financiers, they are going to lose humongously. So this is the way to solve the problems, because if we act together, they have to listen to our demands and to listen to our wishes and to cater to our like righteous demands. That's actually the way to go, but we have to have everyone aligned and to have this kind of major movement, a grassroots movement. And I think they actually are having Michel Desmarquet to write this book just to wake people up. I know a lot of people have been trying to do so in the spiritual communities, but it's just everyone has to act together.
Yes. And you mentioned that they said that we have the potential to access those abilities that they have. And for them, do they use like technologies, or is it all just what's within them? I mean, like what sort of modalities or ways of like healing and regeneration? Like what is it, all consciousness, or is it like med beds, or like what are they connected with?
They actually allude to the reason why some people have psychic powers or supernatural abilities is because of the electrons in the astral body are stronger than others. They categorize the planets in the universe by like 9 different categories. Like we are actually living on a category 1 planet, the lowest category. And they actually come from a category 9 planet, the highest category in the universe. And above that, that will be the source, the great ether, the creator of the universe, what we would call God. And on category 1 planet, people like us, like we have our physical body, we also have our astral body. And our astral body is actually connected to our higher self. And the higher self actually distributes the electrons or the astral bodies to 9 different people on category 1 planet. So we have 1/9 of the electrons of the higher self. But on category 9 planet, the highest category, the higher self is just 1 physical body, just distributes the electrons into 1 physical body. So that 1 physical body has more electrons. That's the reason why they're able to perform miracles, because they have more electrons. What happens if you observe the rituals performed by the members of the secret societies? They use the devious ways to obtain electrons from others in a very, very kind of bad way.
Is that like adrenochrome?
Yeah, something like that, but more devious than that, because the other book that I translated from German to English describing the rituals of the Illuminati, they actually kill people and eat people's heart to obtain electrons from the live person. So that's very, very bad way to do that. But there, the ETs from Thiaoouba, they tell us that we can actually obtain psychic power through meditation and through the natural process, the natural pathway, which is the correct way of doing that. Because when we die, we are going to reveal our lifetime. There's a life review process. So when we die, we are going to be able to feel and experience the actions that we did onto others. For example, if I hit a person in my lifetime, when I die, I'm going to be able to feel the pain of the other person that I hit. So it's like a holographic experience, a holographic life review process when a person dies. So do no harm is actually the best way to put it. It's actually the right way to live, and to be compassionate and to be loving to others is actually the essence of being spiritual.
Yes. So what's the history of their race? Were they ever like attacked and overcame anything similar? Like what is sort of the history of their civilization? It's pretty much protected, or did they overcome something in the past? Or
So according to them, the reason we are on Earth is that we are learning the basics. We are just like elementary school students trying to evolve and move up the ladder to a category 2 planet. They are like college professors mentoring us. So this is why they appeared to some of the ancient people in the past. Like we have records of chariots of fire and things like that. This is actually their doing, trying to assist us indirectly, not directly. They actually went through this process of evolvement already. And actually, they are also created by God, the creator. And it's a constant process of evolvement. And we, once we graduate from Earth, taking all the challenges, responding the difficult lessons correctly, we are able to evolve spiritually as well, and to live on category 2 or maybe 3 planet when we reincarnate again. So this is a whole process. I mean, they say that once you reach category 7, 8, or 9, you don't die anymore. And because they're able to generate body tissues and to really remain forever young. But they also have their roles, which is to guide the lower categories of planets into the right path. This is why they actually have been helping us in the past. And I think it's interesting to read the book because it talks about the Hebrews. It talks about the origins of the different people, different races of people on Earth. The blacks and the yellows originally came from a different planet. The Caucasians came later. The ancestors of the Polynesians came about 250,000 years ago, and the Hebrews came about 12,000 years ago from a planet of a different category called Hebra. They came from category 3 planet. So this is why when you read the Old Testaments of the Bible, you see that in the ancient times, the Hebrews lived 800 years or 900 years, but gradually their longevity got reduced. So I think it has something to do with the different categories of planets.
but they were originally only category 3, the Hebrews?
The Hebrews, yes, came from originally a category 3 planet.
And the ones you're talking about are category 9.
Yes.
But there is some relationship between them and the Hebrews, I thought you said.
They don't have any relationship with the Hebrews, genetically or otherwise, but they helped the Hebrews in a way to escape the rules, the rules from the ancient pharaohs. So that's why they sent Moses to help the Hebrews to leave Egypt, and they also were responsible. They chose the Hebrew people, so that's why the Hebrews were the chosen people, according to this book.
So what's the highest category then that's existed on this planet of being or species?
Well, the highest categories actually were like category 3. And there was an ancient civilization called Lemuria. that existed between like 250,000 years ago until 14,500 years ago on the continent of Lemuria. And they actually colonized Atlantis as well. So that's why you see a lot of ancient technologies. And they were able to use anti-gravitational technologies to build the Great Pyramid on the continent of Lemuria, and also passing the knowledge to Thoth, a person from Atlantis. So that's why Thoth was able to build the Great Pyramid of Egypt in 9 years using the same technologies, anti-gravitational technologies, and also supersonic vibratory systems to cut huge stones in a very precise manner. And they built the Great Pyramid as a tool, as a cosmic tool, as an energy center, because that structure can capture cosmic and terrestrial energies, so that they were able to use it as a tool to communicate with people on different planets and also to make rain. So that's the highest level of civilization that existed on Earth.
It's only 3.
Yeah, 3. Yeah.
And so where are we now, and where are we heading?
So we
We're
are
one
still,
now, right? You said
so we are category 1. We are still category 1. But what's going to happen in the future is that the future depends on our actions. The past is fixed. Actually, Michel Desmarquet visited the past, the Akashic record. They took him to what happened when the entire continent of Lemuria sunk into the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. And the past is fixed. And they can access the past. But the future really relies on our actions. Depends on how we work together collectively through consciousness, and also to get to the right direction and to move our civilization to a better one. And I'm pretty optimistic, because if enough people can wake up, then we can do something together.
what about like positive military forces, and just, with all the everything that we're seeing in the world today, it's not looking so good with what's happening in Israel, just how this is spreading. The borders aren't protected. I mean, do you see that there's some sort of intervention that includes us coming together that you can tell us about? Like what sort of things on a solution level can help to divert what's currently taking place besides us coming together? Is there anything else that we can feel reassured by in these times?
Yes. The most important thing is to spread the knowledge so that more people can wake up. I know you have been doing a lot of great work, and I've been trying over the last 1.5 years or so. Right now, we are only preaching. I feel like I'm preaching the converted. So the next step is to wake people up, the people who still rely on the mainstream media, people who still are in the dark. So the next step is to take the messages and to ask them to have a more independent opinion on the things that's going on in the world. And I think the more people we have that are enlightened, and the more we can do, especially it has to be an international effort, not just the US, not just Canada or the UK. It has to be international efforts, bring people in China, India, Japan, and also Indonesia. And everyone's created by God. Everyone's connected in a way. So we have to really have this kind of international effort.
And doing that will draw the next level or category, right? Moving from one to something beyond. And in doing that, is that when we have more contact? I mean, how much are beings like this going to reveal themselves? And what are we looking at as far as like disclosure and contact?
I think right now what's happening in the Congress is actually moving in the right direction in a sense, but not everyone is aligned. in the ufology communities, because everyone has their own agenda. And I think I'll give you an analogy, because I met the author of this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, twice, and he revealed something that is not written in the book. I think we can actually draw an analogy of the book of Enoch. Enoch was taken away by God, and he was instructed to write a book. So there's the book of Enoch. His great-grandson, Noah, a few decades later, was told to build an ark. Similarly, Michel de Marquet, the author of this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, he was instructed to write a book after he was taken away by the Thiaoubans or Jehovahans to their planet. After he came back, he read the book of Enoch, and he described the book of Enoch to be extremely interesting, because a lot of descriptions in the book of Enoch are very similar to what he personally encountered and experienced. And he was instructed to write a book, and you can imagine what's going to happen a few decades later. So I think the time is approaching, but we have to help ourselves, because God helps those who help themselves. So that's why we need to work together and to take the messages out.
Right. And overcome the divide and conquer. Which is the worst thing. So let's talk about this book. So the book details the author's unique experiences being invited to visit an extraterrestrial planet that has an advanced civilization. And he was informed of the history of Earth, ancient civilizations, facts about reincarnation and afterlife, the construction and the purpose of the Great Pyramid, the statues on Easter Island, the Bermuda Triangle, aura and human energy fields, and the stories in the Bible versus historical facts from their perspective. So out of all those things, what do you want to maybe give us a little bit of info about?
Yes. Well, the book also talks about chakras and human energy field, which I don't have a lot of opportunity to share in the ufology community, because people don't realize that we are actually spiritual beings in a physical body. And what happens is that people always ask, who came first, chicken or egg? The answer is cosmic rays. So when God created everything, it created planets, stars, plants and animals and human beings. So it actually projected cosmic rays, like cosmic eggs, into different locations so that animals were formed and human beings were created. And in order to experience life, experience all the happiness, the sorrows and pains and sufferings, it wants to have a very unique physical experience. They inserted a tiny portion of itself to each of us, to each of our astral bodies. So we are actually part of God, and God is part of us. So it projected cosmic rays to create human beings and everything else. And for example, the cosmic ray, the cosmic egg splits into 3 major points. And then the 3 major points split into 7 chakras. And the 7 chakras extend into auras, or the human energy fields. And then the physical body was formed. So that's the entire creation of human being in that sense. So a lot of people can read auras and see the colors of auras, such as Barbara Brennan and Jocelyn Burry and people like that. And they're able to see the changes of auras before the physical or physiological changes. So for example, Barbara Brennan says that she saw like grayish color in a person's liver. And then a few months later, that person was diagnosed of liver cancer. So the human energy field is very important. And the chakras kind of influence the human energy field, the auras. And the ETs in this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, also explains why people feel better after sexual intercourse, which is the activity of sex is actually an energy exchange, because the chakras of the male and female, but only when they're truly in love with each other. But the chakras of the male and female, they have an energy exchange. So that's why after this kind of experience, they feel much better, and they have a kind of more youthful looking. So So it's actually so it talks about the importance of focusing on the mind and the chakras and the auras, which a lot of people tend to overlook. And towards the end of the book, it also talks about astrology. And Michel de Marquet wrote that astrology works because the locations of different planets influence the electrons in the universe. And it influences about 19% of electrons of the astral body of a human being, because the human physical body is embedded, actually the other way, the astral body is embedded in the human physical body. And in the astral body, 81% of electrons will reunite with the higher self when a person passes or dies. And the other 19% remains in nature until they're recycled or until a person reincarnates again. So that 19% of electrons resemble the person when he or she was alive because of static forces. And the electrons have certain memories. So this is why people say that they can see ghosts. And the ghosts frequently haunt the places they loved or hated. And the locations of the planets influence the 19% of electrons of the astral body that remain in nature. So when a person is born, 81% of electrons come from the higher self, and the other 19% come from nature. So it influences, the locations influence the 19% of the electrons in nature. So that's why when people are born at a certain time in a certain location, they have certain tendencies to be similar. And so this is how Michel de Marquet explains why astrology works. And this brings another interesting topic of the other book that I translated, the book written by the highest degree chair of the Illuminati. They use a different form of astrology. So we tend to kind of use astrology to describe a person's tendencies in life from the birth time and place. But the members of the Illuminati, they're able to calculate the locations of different planets, of the 5 major planets at a given moment of time using a very simple mathematical formula. So they're able to do that very quickly. So that's why they're able to predict certain things that's going to happen in the future. So that's another form of astrology that they practice. So I think a lot of things are very interesting and kind of connected. And this book also talks about the ancient civilizations and stories in the Bible, which I don't know if you're interested.
Oh yeah. I have so many questions still. If you are on a category 1 planet, but you are coming in from like a higher category, to come help, I mean, how does that sort of work? And are any of those beings, did any of them come into physical form? Because obviously, we drop down into this lower category, but our consciousness might still have memories of. So would that be those that help awaken others if they're coming from memories of a higher category? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, very good question. They sometimes help us directly by appearing physically, and sometimes they help us by sending people who have souls from a higher category of planets, and then to be born on Earth from an embryo, and to help us, in a different way, like Moses. Moses actually was born from a soul that was on a higher category of planet, category 8 planet. And but when a person is born into an embryo, through the conception process, the person loses all the memories of past lives or the ability to perform miracles. So this is why Moses wasn't able to perform miracles, even though he was highly spiritual and highly righteous. This is why the Jesus was born from Virgin Mary was highly spiritual, but that Jesus wasn't able to perform miracles. But Christ is a different figure, a different being, according to this book, who came to us to perform miracles so that his teachings could be believed by the people at that time. So they do that in both ways. They also intervene by kind of eliminating the leaders of the bad guys. So they did that in the ancient times, in the past. When the blacks came to Earth and the yellows also came as well, there was a separatist group that went to Africa. And that separatist group enslaved the people and keeping the people ignorant, just like what's happening nowadays. So what the Thiaoubans did was that they sent a dream to the chief priest, who was kind of one of the key person enslaving all the people, telling him that that's not the right way to do that. So there were about 15 chief leaders of that separatist group. So they projected the dream to the chief, the head leader. So the chief woke up, like got enlightened, and he discussed his dream to all the rest of the people, the rest of the 14 leaders. Only like 2 other leaders followed him, decided to change the ways that they were doing. And the other 12 didn't listen to them, and claiming that he was having a hallucination. And so what happened was that the Thiaoubans separated the 3 who decided to change their ways from the rest of the 12, and then killed the 12. And then they kind of projected the other dreams to them and showed up to them and telling him that you should lead the people to become more spiritual and not to enslave them and not to keep them ignorant, and you should develop their full potentials in a democratic way and not to have hierarchies and things like that. So everything went really well until there's a great reset. That's due to a natural disaster, like a asteroid. Asteroid hit the Earth, and they split into 3 parts. One part was now today's Red Sea area, and the other was now the East Timor area, and the other hit was now today's the Galapagos Islands area. So it caused like a flood and also volcanic activities. A lot of people died. That's the first great reset on Earth. So that great civilization was lost, and everything had to start over again. So that's what happened. Yeah. So they try to help us in different ways, directly and indirectly, and indirectly through like sending Moses and Jesus and Christ, and also Enoch and Michel de Marquet to write the books.
Do they oh gosh. So Jesus was he a category 8 too, like Moses, or higher, or similar?
So Jesus, the one who was born out of Virgin Mary, was had a category 9 planet soul coming into the embryo. So Mary was actually born. Actually, Mary was a virgin for sure, and Jesus was highly spiritual and highly intelligent. That's why he was able to have a very in-depth conversation with the teachers of the temple. But there's a missing period of Jesus. And some people say he went to India. Indeed, Jesus went to India. And he died actually in Japan. So this is why when you search the tomb of Jesus in Japan, you're able to see that there is a tomb in Shingo Village, Japan, that people can still visit and do a lot of investigations. And actually, that's the reason why I'm so convinced that this book is authentic, because it has so many specific verifiable facts and people can verify and validate. Christ, on the other hand, is an ET being that actually came to us and going, they actually made a body of Christ that resembled the appearance of Jesus. So they took on the body of Jesus made by them and started preaching. And this is the reason why all out of a sudden, when Christ began preaching, he was able to perform miracles because he actually didn't go through the conception process, forgetting all the knowledge to perform miracles. And he died on the cross and resurrected 3 days after, just to show people at that time that there is life after death and there's reincarnation. But the concept of reincarnation was later removed by the Catholic Church councils. And this book is very specific, naming the 4 different Catholic Church council meetings that intentionally distorted the original meanings of the ancient scriptures of the Bible. And according to Michel Desmarquet, they had to do this because, the ETs had to have Christ come to us to perform miracles, because people at that time in the past, as well as people nowadays, they're highly skeptical. Unless someone is able to perform miracles, his teachings or preachings would have been believed.
Right. So, what about Mary Magdalene? Did they have children, bloodline?
Well, for Mary, a lot of the descriptions in the New Testament of the Bible are accurate and correct, in which they projected a dream to Mary and Joseph, telling him what was about to happen. And then when King Herod was trying to kill the babies, they moved Jesus' family to a different location so that they could survive the massacre of King Herod. And the 3 wise men was grafted from a different legend. But since I'm Chinese, I'm able to read the astronomical records of China to pinpoint the exact date of the birth of Jesus, and also the day of the crucifixion and resurrection, because there are signs in the sky that were recorded by the astronomers in ancient China. I actually wrote an article about that. It's a very specific date and time. And it really doesn't talk much about the bloodlines, but the idea is that everyone is created equal. We are all part of the entire creation. Everyone has a spark of divinity, and it's up to us to whether to follow the spiritual growth or spiritual development, or to take the detour and to spend more time on Category 1 planet.
So just as far as just why the Earth was created and the fact that it's Category 1, what would be the potential that it can become? Say there's a huge amount of individuals, humans, that are moving on the trajectory of moving into Category 2 or 3, and then there's a portion of the population that are still being held to that Category 1. Do you see a bifurcation or a big event happening that's going to create this split? Because some definitely might be choosing not to. You know what I mean? Might not be choosing to move through this time of awakening. Or do you feel that an event will happen that will encourage a mass awakening? So many people talk about an event or a solar flash or this or that. Do you have any information on that?
I do, but I cannot tell. But I actually give a lot of hints to what's going to happen in the future. I wrote an article about the second coming of Christ, but I cannot reveal any more than what the article entails. But let me just to clarify a little bit, is that the planet Earth is a Category 1 planet, and it's probably due to the vibrations or some other factors, and the people are spiritual beings having a physical experience, and once they are evolved, once they're ready, once they evolve to the next level, after they die physically, their astral bodies are going to reincarnate on a higher category planet. So that's why they're not going to come back to Earth. They're going to move up the ladder and to live on a higher category of planet. And those who don't evolve are going to either remain on Earth or to be reincarnated on a category 1 planet. So a lot of people envies, a lot of people in China, they admire Bill Gates and the super wealthy. They want to gain material wealth, but actually the material wealth cannot go with you when you die. So they're actually not highly evolved in the sense that what matters is the spiritual lessons that you learn in the lifetime. That's what matters. It's not the material wealth that you gain in this lifetime or the next lifetime. It's the lessons, the spiritual lessons that you learn. That's going to be the most important thing for the development of the soul. Yeah.
Right. Do you think in our lifetime, though, we will be able to achieve a movement into a higher category without dying and reincarnating in a higher category? So that if we all do that, inner work and we work together, like you're saying, that we will be able to experience that in this lifetime?
Yes. But it has to be a collective effort. Everyone has to act together. We have to really forget about the racial, religious differences, and we have to forget the divisions that we have had in the past. And everyone has to know that we are all creations of the Creator, and we have to have the knowledge that there is a military-industrial complex, a small group of people, not just the military and defense industry, all the other industries like the health industry and the energy industry, they're all connected and related. So we have to have the knowledge and to respond correctly and collectively in the right way.
And it looks like we could achieve that. We're still doing okay in regards to that.
Yes, I see a lot of people waking up, and I see a lot of people like you doing great works.
Good. So you feel optimistic.
I feel optimistic because if you look at the conflicts around the world, it's actually having this kind of effect of waking more people up. People are going to wonder why things happen this way and why like wars are created.
Right. So do you want to talk to us about Easter Island, the Bermuda Triangle, and how that all connects?
Yes, I don't know if you know, there's a person called David Paulides who wrote about the Missing 411 series of books, documenting the people who disappear in the national parks in the US and Canada and elsewhere, and under strange circumstances. According to Michel Desmarquet, he was told that there are warps or portals in different locations on Earth in which people, planes, and ships near the portals get sucked into this parallel universe where time stops. Unless they know how to get out, they're forever stuck there. So actually, Michel Desmarquet was taken into such a parallel universe in which he saw people wearing medieval clothes and people who behave like savages, like cavemen. And they actually stopped in a parallel universe so that people on Earth wouldn't be able to see them. So the ETs from Thiaoouba, they didn't want people on Earth to see the process of them taking Michel Desmarquet onto their spacecraft and leaving Earth. So that's why they used the parallel universe as a hiding place to take Michel Desmarquet on their journey. So this is what explains in the book about parallel universe. The Bermuda Triangle is actually one of the locations where parallel universe exists. And the Great Pyramid of Egypt was actually, as I mentioned, built by Thoth, about 17,000 years ago, because he had the knowledge. He came from Atlantis. He had the knowledge to align the huge stones in a very precise manner so that the energies could be concentrated in a way that it could be projected from the top of the pyramid. But after the destruction of the Library of Alexander, the knowledge was lost. So this is why you see the pyramids built in later years were smaller and more kind of coarse and not as precise as the Great Pyramid of Egypt. But actually, on the continent of Lemuria, there was another bigger pyramid that was 3 times as large as the Great Pyramid of Egypt. But because of the earthquake, the entire continent sunk into the ocean almost overnight. So did the Great Pyramid. And the statues on Easter Island were part of the continent of Lemuria that remained after the earthquake. So that was actually part of the civilization of Lemuria. And they actually use the same technologies, anti-gravitational technologies and supersonic weaponry systems to build the statues on Easter Island.
Were some of these tablets or just some of the things that came through distorted after the Atlantean cataclysms too? Like a lot sort of fell into darkness that it made it hard to reconnect with all that, like Luciferian rebellion type stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of knowledge was lost after the disappearance of Lemuria Atlantis, especially the library in Egypt. But I think some of the secret societies, like the book that I translated from German into English, 334 Lies, LIES, that book kind of insinuates that they kind of obtained certain knowledge from the ancient past. Because if you really read into the book, the high degree members of the secret societies, they have supernatural and super psychic powers. They're able to levitate, they're able to use mind control, they're able to have a lot of psychic powers, such as healing a different person, just by using their mind. So I think they have certain knowledge, but they use it incorrectly in a very devious way, which is highly discouraged.
It highly discouraged how they were misusing all this.
That's right. They're misusing their powers and psychic abilities.
Right. Yeah, there's so much. Oh my gosh, we could dive into about all of that. This is so fascinating. I just could just keep asking questions. I know we need to close soon. Is there just anything that you want to share that I haven't asked about yet? I know there's so much to dive into, but in the times we're in right now, in relation to all that, is there anything of a message that you want to bring forward?
Well, I'm going to say that what we have been discussing is only about 5% of the book. There are another like 95% that can be really helpful to your audience and to the audience of this show. But the immediate need of a lot of people is how to respond to the life challenges that they have been facing, whether it's financial or relationship-wise or spiritually. And I know everyone has a lesson to learn in this lifetime. And when you encounter lifetime challenges or obstacles or difficulties, the way to respond is to look inside for answers, because the kingdom of God is within you. You are able to communicate with your higher self through meditation or through dreams. Having a good night of sleep helps. So don't panic and don't worry when you have issues or difficulties or challenges, always look inside for answers and not to follow a specific organized religion, or definitely not to follow the politicians. So I think, especially the politicians nowadays. So I think that's the key to solve the challenges. Because if the solutions are good for your spiritual development, they will be provided to you through meditation or through your dreams.
Yes, beautiful. So Michael Desmarquette, he had a really tough time after visiting the civilization, with the changes that took place in his family and the way people treated him. What events led up to his death, and was he able to continue having the guidance and support of these beings? Or I mean, and where are these beings today? Are they connecting with anybody directly?
He received telepathic messages after the book was published in Australia, first in Australia, and some of the telepathic messages were really interesting. One relating to the grace on Earth, and the other relating to the chambers beneath the Sphinx. I can elaborate a little bit more, but those are very interesting messages. And they can live among us. They can shorten themselves into our physical size and to live among us. And they help us indirectly because that way we can learn better. Just like parents teaching their children a mathematical problem and concept, they don't just give them the solutions or answers. They kind of give their children the basic principles so that their children can learn on their own and to find solutions on their own. That's a more effective way of learning. Similarly, they don't just give us the answers and solutions. They don't serve the meal on the plate. And I would say that they are still among us and monitoring our activities. And I think we have to really follow their lead and to really act together and to really find solutions on our own.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, nothing's going to come save us. But if we can rise up to the occasion, like you said, God helps those that help themselves. It seems to be just the way we relate to, galactic beings. Is there any relationship between them and like Val Thor and the beings from Venus that you know of?
I listened to a lot of lectures by Dr. Frank Stranges, and I read a book, Strangers in the Pentagon, and I believe that to be authentic. But in this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, it doesn't really mention anything about Thor and things like that. But it says there are other ETs in our Milky Way galaxy that have been either observers or trying to help us directly or indirectly throughout ancient times. And I wouldn't be surprised if they know each other. And I do see that they're trying to help us, and a lot of ETs have been trying to help us along the way.
Right. And do they have any like ships that are cloaked on the planet?
They are able to make themselves disappear, and I wouldn't be surprised if they cloak themselves and then to observe us. But in this book, it describes how they observe different civilizations on Earth and other planets. Is that they have a mothership that's spherical, but they also send smaller, kind of like round-shaped detectors or monitors onto different planets and to observe and to collect samples of the soil. There are fascinating descriptions in the book.
Wow. So is this planet like seeded to be a category 3 again? Do you think that's the highest level that this planet is capable of, or is it going to go beyond that?
I think when the people are ready spiritually, they're able to reincarnate on higher category of planet. Earth will remain like a category 1 planet. Oh, by the way, it also mentions about what happened to Mars, and also the ET bases on the far side of the moon.
Yes,
And
I want to
this,
hear about that. That's another question.
I know.
But to move into a higher category, is that also connected to the stargates, and it's a part of this body, but it's a higher expression of it? Do you know what I mean? Because of the stargates and the how that links to our DNA.
I think it's the people moving onto a higher category as planet, and by ascending or by ascending into a higher level of consciousness or spiritual attainment, and then being reincarnated on a higher category of planet. Through that process, Earth, I think, is a planet that we should treasure, and it's for people who want to learn harsher lessons. Yeah.
Well, tell us before we close about Mars and the moon then.
Okay, back 1.35 million years ago, when the blacks and the yellows were exploring the solar system, they actually found that there were lives on Mars. People were highly spiritual, but they didn't have a lot of technologies, and there were people on Mars. But Mars had a problem because the core of the Mars, according to this book, the core of Mars was cooling down. So when the core of a planet cools down, like their original planet, it doesn't have the electromagnetic force to capture the atmosphere anymore. So that's why Mars became a dead planet, because the atmosphere disappeared without the electromagnetic forces that came from the core. And so that's what happened according to this book. But there are ET bases on the far side of the moon, because when the ancestors of the Polynesians the ancestors of the Lemurians came to Earth about 250,000 years ago, they encountered resistance from the Chinese. The Chinese were really suspicious, and are really suspicious. I'm Chinese, so I know that. And so they had a small war. So the Lemurians, the people from Arima X3, they retreated back and built ET bases on the far side of the moon as transfer stations, so that they could transfer their people face by face to Earth on Lemuria. That's the purpose. That's the reason they built bases on the moon. And I take the idea that we did go to the moon, but we were warned off from the moon. And because we were not ready to explore the solar system and other planets, because we were still having wars amongst ourselves. And they're afraid of us polluting the universe or other planets. Just like if you see gorillas fighting against each other, would you invite them to your beautiful mansion and make a mess? You wouldn't. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, gosh, this has been incredible. Wow, I'm so glad to have met you, and I definitely going to get a copy myself, and this will be a really important read for people. And yeah, we barely really scratched the surface. So any final areas of the book that you want to bring to light that we haven't discussed, and any final words?
I would say that the people who are running the show are behind everything. And Michel de Marquet was told by Tao that there are 12 families doing that. And
Not
right
13,
now,
12, 13.
12, not 13, 12.
Oh.
Because if they mention the family of Li, that's probably not right, because Li is actually a pretty common surname in China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, and South Korea. So they're not just one clan, they're different families and origins. So I think they don't have the knowledge if they mention the family Li. But I know that there are members of the Chinese ruling party that are members of the Illuminati, according to a whistleblower from China. But I think people need to have independent thinking and to really do additional research, and to have like specific verifiable facts, so that they can really pinpoint the problems that we face on Earth. I think that's doable. It's just that we need a lot of verifiable whistleblowers to work together.
Right. And there's a lot of disinfo, and sometimes they put plants and just controlled opposition and stuff. But do you feel that when we awaken, that some of those families, some of the those involved in the darker agendas might come around and want to join and heal? Or we see some doing that, but do you see maybe a big turnaround and transformation with a lot of those members of the
I'm
family?
definitely hoping so. I don't know if you have a lot of connections. I'd like to be able to reach out to them as well personally. And there's a misconception that they have, the families, and also the Committee of 300, and a lot of the other secret societies and people, is that when you have an overpopulation issue, the solution is not to kill people, not to depopulate. The solution is to migrate the people to a different planet of the same category. This is what the different races of different planets did in the past. They don't depopulate themselves. They don't kill themselves. They move their people to different planets. So that's the way that I think that's a misconception that they have. And the other misconception is the purpose of life is to learn spiritual lessons through different reincarnations. A lot of them just worry about their present and current lives, accumulating insufficient power or wealth, but they don't realize that once they die, they're going to have this kind of what some people would describe as the near-death experiences. They're going to have a life reveal process. Everything will be projected to them or shown to them holographically, and they're going to know that the purpose of life is about love and compassion, not to mistreat each other and to accumulate material wealth. Because if you do a lot of research, people who have near-death experiences, they never regret about not being able to invest in a certain stock or project to gain material wealth. They're always regretful about not giving enough love to their family members. So that's the essence and the key and the purpose of life that they need to realize through research and through realization and through other means.
So I was recruited to go off planet in 2006 to Mars, and I declined and exposed it because there's some layers to it that I felt needed to be addressed and exposed. What are your thoughts about colonizing Mars, or do you know anything about that? And because of planetary ascension, and that's been prophesized, I felt that that was more what I was being prepared to do here on this planet, and not leave the planet and go to Mars. Do you have any thoughts about that before we go?
Mars, according to this book and according to our scientists and astronomers, and Mars is a planet of deserts. So I think if Elon Musk wants to migrate people to a dead planet, I think that's probably a kind of a more challenging way of doing so than moving to a planet, a younger, more useful planet like Earth. And I also want to bring people's attention, it's just my personal opinion, and according to certain whistleblowers, such as Shane Sidori, who claims that himself was or is a ex-Illuminati member. According to people like them, there have been technologies that can project what he would call a holographic simulation to certain people who have or who claim that they have this kind of experience. I don't know. A personal opinion is that he could be true and could be false, but it doesn't really surprise me if certain groups of people have this kind of technology to make people believe that they have this kind of experiences on different planets, and because if you really have to go to a different planet like the moon or Mars or different another planet of that category, you have to solve a lot of issues such as gravity and also the atmosphere, the oxygen issue. And logically, according to a lot of scientists, a lot of people that they interact with, is too challenging to do at the moment time with our current technologies. So I would have to lean on the other way. Would it be possible? Could it be that it's a simulated projection or holographic experience that people are having? It's just I don't have a determined answer, or I don't know.
Right. And they do have those technologies. So some of the experiences people might have who have been in the secret space programs, who's to say, who knows? What are your thoughts with the possible fake alien invasion or any kind of invasion? Or do you feel that a higher level of disclosure? I mean, I know we already talked about this and you're feeling, positive, and so am I in many ways, but do you see something like that playing out, using that kind of technology to create some kind of fake alien invasion?
I think it really depends on how they want to do it. If they really need a lot of military funding, they're definitely going to do that. So the defense contractors and companies, they need a lot of money. But I think right now there are a lot of wars going on, so they are able to get sufficient money and funding from the government. So they are probably not going to do a fake alien invasion. But when there's a prolonged peaceful period on Earth, like what happened like a few years ago, when they need money, they're probably going to create like a fake alien invasion or something like that. But right now, I don't think so, because we already have a lot of wars going on. They're able to get their finance okay into their pocket. But on the other hand, the real ETs, I don't think they're going to invade us by any means, because if you look at the reason why we haven't been back to the moon, even with advanced technologies and lower costs, they are preventing us to pollute different planets. They are going to prevent the evil intentioned ETs from coming to us as well, because they're protecting both ways. Us, the polluters, polluting other planets, they're also going to prevent other polluters coming to Earth. And also it brings another interesting topic about the grays. Michelle McKay released or disclosed publicly in the year 1995, saying that the grays did put implants on us, about 150 people or so, just to monitor our activities, because they also come from a category 1 planet. They're also a dying race because they have been losing their immune system. We, the people on Earth, have been losing our immune system since 1948. And they really want to monitor our activities just to learn from us, to see how we respond to the same situation. But the ETs from Thiaoouba, they're saying that there's absolutely no need to worry about the implants, because they have been monitoring the activities of the grays. Like, in another sense, they're protecting us
Right.
from any of the,
Yeah, it seems like the biggest invasion or takeover has already taken place that we're liberating ourselves from. And it's more maybe the hybrids and those families that you're talking about. Correct? So it can't get much worse. It's more the final showdown, and it really depends on us to overcome the divide and conquer tactics and all the things that are causing us to not unite and come together and understand what's really going on behind the scenes. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, and another point is that a lot of people blame the ETs or blame the Greys for doing a lot of the things. In my mind, I think the Greys are just neutral beings, and it's the small group of people in our government, not only the US but also other countries, working and having their motives and agenda, working with the Greys, trying to get their technologies, doing a lot of the things that are really bad on Earth. It's not, I don't think they're the Greys that trying to do that. I think it's us, the government,
Right.
trying to do that.
Right. Last question, and then we'll close. But the Dracos, the reptilians, what are your thoughts?
I know a lot of people mention about the reptilians and saying that they're the top on the top of the hierarchy of the ruling families and the Illuminati and so on and so forth. And I kind of I work with a lot of lawyers and doctors. I have this kind of give me proof, give me the evidence mind. I know there's a guy called Ron Bernard, a Dutch banker who used to work for members of the Illuminati, and he takes the idea that the Draco and also the reptilians, they're kind of people's imagination or people's kind of using them as someone to blame on. He observed like the members of the Illuminati having super psychic powers to kill a different person, like to kill people just using their mind. And I think I haven't been able to find any specific verifiable evidence about the reptilians and the Draco, and I don't have any personal conviction that they are the ones doing the devils or the evils on Earth. I think it's just us, the secret societies and the military industrial complex and those 12 families. I think those are the people doing the wrong things.
Right. Wow, gosh. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been really wonderful to get to know you, and incredible that you just translate all these books and have all this information. And I would love to have you on again. There's so much we could go for hours. And what's next for you? And where can we find more information? And what's your next kind of project?
Yes, so I live in Los Angeles, and people can find me on Facebook by searching my name, Samuel Chong, and people can get a book as well. So my next step is to really kind of send the messages to the people who still rely on the mainstream media. So I'm going to speak in their language and to try to bring them into light, opening their eyes and to see what's really going on behind everything. Hopefully it's going to be successful. And the other is to unite everyone together, not just people in the US, not just the different fractions in the US ufology community, but also like people around the world. And hopefully that works.
Oh, that's incredible. I'm right there with you. That's really all I'm about, is the unity, the healing, the transformation, and just really seeing the truth of what's really happening and what's going on to get our power back and not be fed upon and siphoned and manipulated and all that kind of stuff. So thank you so much for these beautiful messages and reminders and warnings. And yes, it's really what my background is, being related to the man who warned us about the military industrial complex. So it's just been so wonderful to spend this time with you today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. And if you need any help in China, please let me know.
Oh, definitely. Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yes, I will definitely be in touch. Okay.
Great.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.